the last video I did, I talked about my high school experience a little, and I thought I could follow that up with my college experience. And it's definitely a talk that I feel a little nervous to do and a little scared. So, it's probably will be the most vulnerable talk I've ever done. So, yeah, hopefully it goes okay. And so to start off, something that I didn't really talk about in the video of high school that really I kind of suffered with for a long time, pretty and through all of high school and really up all the way up into college, like through my whole life, was that I really struggled with procrastination. And anytime I go to start something, I mean, the thing that I would mainly feel it like in homework, because most nights I would come home with homework and I would tell myself, I'm going to start my homework at 4 o'clock. And then I would procrastinate till like 7 or 8 o'clock and then start my homework. And I would do that pretty much every night. Or yeah, like every night, like not pretty much, like every night. And it was because anytime I go to start something, I would get incredibly anxious, and the anxiety would prevent me from starting my homework. And it didn't just show up in that doing homework, but it also showed up like for a while growing up. I took music lessons, and anytime I go to start practicing like my instrument that I was taking lessons for, I would again get super anxious. And so it just led me to never really practicing and never really learning those instruments that I was taking lessons for. And was something that I was just like learning to live with. Like I would always study for tests the night before, and it was like it felt like out of my control because the anxiety I would feel would be so bad trying to just start something that it really like I felt like there was like I was just like, okay, this is just how I function, I guess. And so going into college, like over that summer, my mom took me to see a therapist who he specialized in something called somatic therapy, which is all about regulating people's nervous systems through touch. And so in a somatic therapy session, the client essentially lies on a massage table and the therapist just holds different areas of their body that is regulating for someone's nervous system, like your brain stem and your ankles and underneath your kidneys. And like over time doing sessions, eventually your body will get more and more regulated, more and more relaxed. And it actually really helps you have more like oftentimes like people that are hard to be around or people lost in an addiction, like it's coming from a place of reactivity or impulsiveness. And when our nervous system is dysregulated due to trauma or just the choices we're making every day, it it makes us much more likely to choose things through impulse rather than thinking, is this like actually supportive to me? And so like somatic therapy, even just doing like an intensive for like a weekend over the summer, in a lot of ways really changed my life. And this therapist was, I really felt, was like the first person who ever really saw me, like saw how deeply I was like hurting, saw how like all the repressed anger that I was hiding from being mistreated from my friends and from my parents, and just saw me and saw my suffering and could see under the surface of like how I like could see under like my ways of trying to hide my suffering essentially. And during one of those somatic therapy sessions, the thing that kind of like essentially healed my procrastination pattern is during one of the sessions, my body essentially reworked my birth. And my neck elongated and my scalp collapsed, literally like I was going through a birthing process. And after one of the like what we think like might have been the reason my body did that was essentially like when I was going to be born in a hospital, the doctors, my mom felt like I was ready to come out, and the doctors were like, hang on a second. So, since you're so early, we actually need to move you to a different room. And they rushed us off to a different room. And then we're like, okay, now give birth. And then, like, throughout my life, up until this session, when I was 18, I would get super anxious trying to start something. And like what you realize about, like, have done a somatic therapy training and have even assisted in a couple of trainings, and you learn that like the birthing process, like when a baby is being born is so incredibly sensitive, and any little like shifts or adjustments can be traumatic and can be traumatic for that baby's system. And literally after that session, I went into college and my procrastination was pretty much gone, and I was able to like just sit down and do my homework and like study for exams, not just the night before, but multiple days in advance. And it really shifted my college experience, like from an academic sense in a lot of ways. And I was able to take really hard classes and do pretty well in them, all due to that session. And it's something I think that's important to talk about because oftentimes when people think about healing, I think it's becoming more and more of awareness, but it isn't always the most talked about thing, is just like how regulated is your nervous system and what kind of choices are you making every day that affects how regulated your nervous system is. Like playing Call of Duty is not really going to help you be calm and relaxed in your body. And also like the like trauma, like especially if you're coming home to a household that doesn't always feel the most safe, and our nervous system can get caught up into a place of reactivity, caught into a place of survival, which survival is acting on impulses, constantly reacting to other people rather than thinking about, is this a thoughtful thing for me to say, or should I keep these words to myself? And recognizing that so much about the healing journey is just like how regulated your nervous system is. And traumatic events, whether it's like some big shock trauma or a household that wasn't safe, or even something that happened during birth, can lead you getting stuck in a nervous system that can, like, if it happens enough or was a big enough event, can keep your nervous system kind of in an elevated state of reactivity for your life, if you can't find some way to like actually heal the underlying wounds that cause your nervous system to get jacked up in the first place. And so for me, what really, like for me, parents getting divorced, them both being like a little bit more passive aggressive, negative, and like hard to be around every day, and oftentimes taking like being having a lot of edge in their voice, or saying things that were sometimes mean, and really it being like not a safe always to be around my parents, and never really knowing, are they going to be like calm in this moment, or are they going to be super irritable, negative, angry, and even take some of that anger out on me with their words? Like, really, that all really jacked up my nervous system and jacked me into a place of survival and flight or flight, and total disorganized, not safe in my body, coupled with pornography, only made things like way worse. And so somatic therapy was one of the ways that I started to heal from and start to regulate my nervous system a little bit more, and helped me with helped me with my own kind of helped me start to have a little bit more space and thoughtfulness in how I was and how I was showing up. And so going into college, like in the last video, I talk about how, and also that therapist name, if anyone's curious in somatic therapy, his name is Stephen Terrell. He's out of Austin, Texas. You can search Austin Attach. .com to learn more about his work, and he offers training, and there's many therapists trained in somatic therapy. And I often think that people with ADHD are just people with dysregulated nervous systems, and if we can heal underlying traumas or learn what what is dysregulating my nervous system and what's regulating my nervous system day to day, like video games, pornography, is all going to lead to greater dysregulation. Any type of addictions going to lead to greater unsafety in your body. That's going to cause you to feed your addictions, be more reactive and impulsive more often in your life. And if we can learn to either, and there's many ways to regulate your nervous system. Somatic therapy is just one avenue, but it's a quite effective way. Also, like different like meditations, visualizations can be really helpful in regulating your nervous system. And just becoming a lot more aware of, if I'm really struggling with addiction, if I'm really struggling with impulsiveness, if my friends and family tell me that I'm negative and irritable quite often, I might benefit from either doing somatic therapy work or becoming curious what's going to help me regulate my nervous system more, because there's many different ways to do it. And if we have a child with ADHD, somatic therapy would be a great avenue to explore. Also, just like sound baths or just like other things of like, how can I help this child start to feel more and more safe in their body, is a great question to ask ourselves as parents. And so to transition to going into college, like in my last video, I talk about like my senior year of high school was starting to feel like I was ready to face my pornography addiction, and the universe gave me a little help doing that by by me essentially getting a friction burn on my penis. And I said in the last video it took a long time to heal, but it really took a long time to heal, like literally like 2 years. So like my whole freshman year of college. And it took such a long time to heal because like I over lotioned it, which dried out my skin even worse. And I also hated myself at that time and had a pattern of taking my anger out on me, and my only coping mechanism was masturbating. So all of that led to it just taking freaking forever to really get back to a place of like, oh, like it's better now, could have sex if I wanted to, feels fine to masturbate, all that stuff. And so in that experience, like going into college was essentially a fresh start. And like in high school, I pretty much felt like a ghost where I was just kind of there. I think everyone but not a lot of people took a lot of interest in me, and just kind of like felt like I was floating through high school without anyone really seeing me. And then in college, being like have like fresh start, no one really knows me, and people like it being like surprised of like, oh, people are actually interested in getting to know me. Like that to me was like shocking. It was like, what is this? Someone actually wants to talk to me and be my friend. What? It was like foreign to me. And then also at the same time, like having from all my pornography use in high school, one, first people were really starting to take interest in me and like wanting to be my friend, which was like very different from my high school experience. And in college, also having all that leftover residue from pornography use. And because I had like my penis was still recovering, I literally would like became a lot more aware of the patterns of like I'm no longer using porn, and I'm seeing my mind is constantly thinking about who I can have sex with, constantly trying, like anyone that I'm attracted to, constantly thinking about like how I could hook up with them, and starting to see more and more like that is a toxic perspective. Like that is not going to serve deep, meaningful relationships in your life. That is going to serve like surface level relationships in your life. And so college in a lot of ways was like a time of like recovery and a time of like really facing my deepest darkness and like witnessing it, because I had no other choice and I didn't really have a lot of a choice to like feed those patterns. And so I literally, and it is such an interesting to like kind of an interesting college experience because like my main driving force to like go out and drink would have been to like hook up with people, and because like as I didn't really feel comfortable hooking up with people, it was then like, okay, maybe I'm not gonna drink and I'll just focus on school. And like I had a couple of friends, but kind of kept the like loner vibe going a little bit and kind of just hung out with myself. But it was a time of really learning to sit with my patterns and sit with all the negativity, all the ways in which my unworthiness was trying to feed itself through validation through sex, and seeing, and I didn't see this then, but now seeing like, hey, like your unworthiness thinks it receives value through sex, but in truth, it's a reminder of your unworthiness when you have loose sexual boundaries, because only someone who felt unworthy would be making choices from that standpoint. Like if someone really felt like they had a lot of worth and value, they would have strong values, because they would think I'm only going to let someone get close to me if they're going to be able to fully able to care for me and also be supportive to for my heart. And like especially now as like a 27-year-old, you start like you start to see like, oh, like anytime you share sex with someone, you're like it's a deep energy swap, and you're essentially saying all their patterns I would like to be more like. And if we don't feel that way, we're then essentially letting in people's energy in our body that might not necessarily be good for us. And they might have patterns or levels of codependency or darkness that we've either worked ourselves through or don't really want to be like. But when we're having sex with someone, we're opening ourselves up to that. And so it was it was interesting college experience, because instead of feeding all those patterns of like really want and my watching my mind like constantly think about ways it could feed those patterns, and constantly trying to think about who I could have sex with, and in some ways, and then being able to see, oh, like even if I have the intention of like wanting to have sex with this person, like the people, like some people can sense that to some degree. Everyone is empathic, and even if you're thinking about having sex with someone while spending time with them, that like if someone doesn't want to be used in that way, that's going to push people away. And so like really seeing that in college too, even though I wasn't feeding those patterns, and seeing the level of unsafety those patterns created in myself, and also created in like certain females I was attracted to spending time with me. And so it was like a very different experience. And also like in high school, or in that high school video, I talk about really thinking like, oh, if I got a girlfriend, like my life would get better, and then that not happening. But eventually, like in the start of college, I did end up making a friend who like I was like kind of in love with. And um that was essentially the friend like I probably would have hoped to have made in high school. And like essentially taught me how to study, and was like unconditionally loving and accepting, and like I was upfront with her about like my penis stuff, and so we kind of just stayed in friendship. um but recognize like now, like looking at that, like we receive the people when we need them, not when we want them. And oftentimes we have to be at a certain level of self-love or healing or awareness in order to receive either relationship or the friendships that we think are going to get us through a time. But really they will only step into your life when you are able to handle those relationships to some degree, or to like at least be the person that could meet them in the way they would want to be met. And so like in college, meeting this girl, and like she's like super unconditionally loving and accepting, we're spending like a lot of time together, and also, and she's like teaching me how to like study well, and um really was the person I needed when I was in high school. And I received it when I had gone into a certain level of awareness and even a little self-love to be able to like meet her probably how she wanted to be met. And we ended up then eventually having a falling out my freshman year because she started talking to another guy and I still had feelings for her and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, and of course, after that, fell back into pornography because it was my only coping mechanism. And, and yeah, and so then like going then like for a year falling back into pornography, eventually finding my way out of it. And like starting sophomore year, I started to feel like my reproductive system was like fully back to normal. I was like, I could have sex if I wanted to. It feels fine. And everything's like recovered. And then like a month into like or a month or two into that perspective, I started to have like a little bit of like digestive systems that like slightly affected my reproductive system, where it just like made the color of my penis maybe like a little more like white or discolored, and I felt so self-conscious about it that then continued to like feel like I couldn't connect with people that way. And I've literally gone to doctors and they haven't even noticed what I was talking about, but like being just like, I guess, an insecure person and feeling a lot of insecurity around that area, like and like just a little discolor only amplified that. Like a little discoloration only amplified that, even though it was all functioning fine. And so I continued to, it really though helped me detox, like really got me to a place of like where I could like, because it took a couple years. Like my freshman year, I did not, I was sitting with the patterns, but you don't like it takes years to start to come back into balance and harmony and see, okay, these are all from my pornography use. Like when I was a freshman, I don't think I really realized that. I think I just thought that's how my mind thought. And so like sophomore year and continuing to sit and eventually finding my way out of pornography again and continuing to sit with the part of myself that really craves sex as a way of meeting, trying to find some type of value in myself, and sitting with those patterns, and then eventually like junior and then senior year really starting to see, okay, these like freshman year I don't think I really saw it, but junior and senior year really starting to see, okay, these patterns of lust, this constantly trying to like think about like how we could have those needs met even though we feel too secure to act on those choices. um really really like even just like the like slight symptoms of experience actually helped free me from my patterns of like hedonism, free me from constantly like thinking about chasing after sex and thinking that was a good idea. And so like it was such like a weird polarity of like coming into college being completely obsessed with sex and then not feeling not feeling like I could meet those desires, and then so having to sit with them. And the lot you learn, whatever patterns you're going through, if you can sit with the pattern, you get more and more space and you start to really see things clearly. And so like junior and senior year starting to really see, oh, these are patterns from pornography, these wouldn't actually serve my well-being. And so junior year really starting to work on really starting to work on like trying to make better choices and trying to heal those patterns and becoming more and more aware of, I really should not feed these patterns in any way. And like so my junior year, like pretty much like stopped even looking at like sexually something like even sexual photos on Instagram. I was like cutting that out and really leaning into, can I fully detox from from uh from these patterns? Can I fully detox from the part of me that's constantly looking for like either its next sexual hit through looking at images or thinking about sex or having a bunch of sexual fantasies? And can I start to face these patterns? And junior year was also when I started to embody a lot more self-care, like go like I from sophomore year I ate like no vegetables, and then my junior year I went vegetarian, which for me has felt like the most supportive diet. I know for different people, different diets feel supportive, and we all have different, our bodies all have different ancestors who ate different things and different needs. But for me, vegetarian and eventually I just went vegan felt like a deeper level of self-care and supportive for me. And that something I also went, by the time like I barely drank like 20, when I was 20, I would still like sometimes like just get drunk, like really drunk, like my sophomore year. Um, and I drank some my freshman year too, but sophomore year I get like really drunk, like not often, but like maybe once a month. But it was like not the most healthy thing to do. And so like my junior year, starting to face that pattern, starting to essentially, like, I barely drank my junior year, was vegetarian, and some of it was to, and the going sober and vegetarian was honestly inspired by like the digestive things that were like that I was being affected by, that were also slightly affecting my reproductive system. And I thought maybe if I made different choices, my body would get more healthy. And the symptoms didn't really go away, but I think honestly, like, you support the health of the whole system, you are supporting the healing of your body as well, even though the symptoms still kind of stuck around. And I, and so yeah, my junior year started to really focus on self-care. And what you learn about self-care is like when you can regulate your nervous system, when you regulate your nervous system through how you care for yourself, through how you talk to yourself, like that's like a great daily practice. While like somatic therapy like often can get us over the hump of like helping our nervous system like over time slowly rewire and relax a little bit more. Another simpler way to do it is just how deeply can I care for my own body, and can I cut out the things that are toxic or negative or not supportive to me, and can I start to like say the words to myself I've always wanted to hear from others? Can I start to care for my body like it's precious? And so my junior year really really starting to adopt a lot of that, and honestly probably would not have been sober and would have not gone vegetarian if I didn't have those symptoms. And so like there's always a gift in like the negative experiences we have, and even like my reproductive system having symptoms or me getting the friction burn, like it really helped me find my way out of my patterns from pornography, and find my way out of trying to use the feminine to meet my sexual needs without developing any type of love or care for people. Like it, even though I wasn't feeding those patterns, it helped wake me up out of those perspectives. And then and then my junior year, I also found this teacher named Matt Kahn, who like who taught all about self-love, and he's like a spiritual teacher, but he teaches very much just about how much more can you love and accept yourself, and how to face some of the deeper patterns that are going on with you around judgments and self-loathing. And absolutely changed my life. Absolutely, like, went from someone who still thought I was doing everything wrong, which is like kind of a pattern of self-hatred that's subtle, and also like just kind of hating myself still. Like I remember in college, I don't remember when I stopped doing this, but I remember in college when I do things that I didn't like, I would like say to myself like fuck me in my face in my head, which is not the most loving thing to say to yourself. And so Matt really kind of modeled what it meant to be like honest and loving to yourself, and also to some degree like to look at the darker aspects of yourself, and can you acknowledge them and accept them rather than continuing to avoid them, or rather than trying to hide from them from some addictive pattern we're choosing repetitively. And something I just want to kind of hit on is like, I was talking with a friend yesterday and talking about like push and pull. And if we find ourselves connecting with people where there's a push and pull, like where you're like absorbed with someone and spend a bunch of time with them, and then you pull away for a bit, and then you go back to them and and you recognize that you don't really always like how they act, but you like the attention they give you. Like, and or if we do that with substances too, like for me that was with pornography, where I stopped and then I would become absorbed into again my sophomore year and then stopped again. And recognizing that the push and pull is coming from my inner child, which is also where my darkness and shadow comes from, because our wounded child is the one that puts on the scary Halloween costume that then becomes our obtrusive thoughts, that then becomes like uncomfortable feelings, that then becomes the parts of ourselves that wants to self-soothe through toxicity, whether that's substances, whether that's casual sex, whether that's people, whether that's just spending a bunch of time with people that aren't good for us, or whether that's the part of ourselves that avoids being alone, through whatever way we do that, even if it's just scrolling on Instagram, which I definitely still do at times, not perfect by any means. Um, and and recognizing that our inner child is trying to push us away through obtrusive thoughts, or trying to push us away from connecting with that inner child by getting us to act on addictive patterns, but really recognizes, like when I put on the scary Halloween costume and send them a bunch of sexual fantasies, send them a bunch of thoughts that they think are hard to sit with or hard to look at, or get them to act on their patterns that they use as self-soothing, but really is serving their toxicity and destruction. That inner child recognizes that when they think about marijuana, when they have these thoughts that they find disturbing, they are essentially giving me attention just for a second. And that's what our deepest wounded inner child really wants, is it thinks it can keep you from looking at it by constantly giving you things you find disturbing, or constantly getting you to act on your addiction. But in truth, what it really just wants is loving attention. And if we can say, if we like want to just acknowledge the scary Halloween costume it's wearing, and say, I love you, shadow, I love you, darkness, and I'm grateful for all the sexual fantasies, I'm grateful for all your desires and cravings for sex, I'm grateful for, like, if we're use a substance, I'm grateful for all the times you try and get me to act on smoking weed, and I recognize the pain you're in, and I see you. All of a sudden those desires and cravings probably would soften, those your addiction would soften, and you'd feel less push pull towards it. And like for me, like when I started doing that with like the sexual fantasies I've had, like it would feel like they would take over my mind. And then when I did that the first time I ever did that, my mind went completely blank, and the sexual fantasies were gone. And it's the wounded inner child saying, thank you for seeing me. That's what I really wanted, was your attention, and I didn't know how to ask for it. And oftentimes when we were children, we got our attention from our parents when we had problems, and so our inner child creates problems in our life, and problems within your mind and your heart, as a way of saying, at least they'll look at me for a second. And so if we can just say, I love you, inner child, I love you, wounds, I see you, I hear you, I'm grateful for these disturbing thoughts, I'm grateful for these fantasies, I'm grateful for these desires and cravings, boom, you'll find yourself free of those patterns so much quicker. Mm. And so junior year, and then bring it back, and then senior year, really starting to find myself in like a place of like like nice presence, of awareness, of feeling pretty, starting to feel pretty free from those patterns. It was also when like second semester when COVID hit. And so during college, I was like a little bit of a loner, but it was really a time where I got to face my patterns of like how I would crave to use people for sex, and was also a time of like recovery and healing, and bringing greater awareness to the pain that I would in high school live to avoid. and like having a fresh start and essentially having space from my parents while they are good people was also very helpful too. And something I kind of just like want to hit on is like oftentimes the patterns that we heal are then like the ways we help other people heal. The patterns that we face and heal and recover from in ourselves are then how our energy fields helps others people heal, even if we're not a healer. And like something I've noticed in my life is the people that are attracted to my videos, the people who want to be my friend oftentimes are people trying to find their way out of hedonism, which is like so interesting. Like the people, like I go to ecstatic dance, and like oftentimes the people that want to be my friends are like people who are either struggling with a pornography addiction, used to go to sex clubs, like maybe are have done some type of sex work, and those are the people that seem to be attracted to me. And so what you find is your greatest pain is your greatest service, and how lost you are in darkness was actually the when you heal from it is actually the gifts you're going to bring to this world. And you when you heal your patterns, even if it's just a pattern of a worthiness or feeling a hard time being seen by others or having a hard time public speaking, or some a deeper addiction, like if you can heal the pattern of codependency, you are essentially paving the snowy road for then others to follow your the trail you're carving out. And even if you never do any type of healing work, your presence alone is helping people, whether you're aware of it or not. And your energy field will embody the healing light codes and the frequencies that other people need to find their way out of those addictive patterns, whether it's codependency, whether it's obsessions with sex, whether it's like drugs or alcohol or whatever, or shopping sprees we go on. When we can find ourselves free from the patterns is when our energy field will anchor the frequencies others need, and it will actually be the people that are attracted to you are oftentimes people that, and doesn't mean we have to be friends with them if they're toxic or not good for us. And we all have to be discerning of who should I let close to me and who's better at, like, maybe I just see them at community events, or maybe I don't really have a relationship with them, right? You can think about it, maybe the transmission is just kind of simultaneous, and the moment I meet them is when they receive the light codes they need to eventually move out of their patterns. And I don't have to spend time with anyone that doesn't resonate with me. And I've had friends who are like hedonistic, who started to fall back, who had taken a break, and then we're falling back into the pool of hedonism. And I was like, see ya, like like thank you for the friendship, but I don't need to spend time with you because I'm going to become more like you, and I really don't want that for myself. And so and so recognizing, just because our energy field might be helping and serving others, like if we're not in a healer role with that person, there's no type of contract or no obligation to help that person if it doesn't feel good to spend time with them, or we don't really want to be more like them. So that just is a caveat too. Um, and so, whatever you suffer with, whatever pain you've gone through, you will, when you heal from it, you will bring help and healing to this world. And I really believe that everyone is a healer. Everyone is given certain amounts of pain. Everyone is healing on this planet, whether they're aware of it or not, whether they hide it well or not. And when we can step into our power, our wholeness, and face our patterns and acknowledge them and acknowledge our darkness and say thank you rather than what's the next way for me to avoid these feelings, is when we start to anchor more of the light, more of the peace that we wish to see on a world stage. But really, it's going to happen on a world stage when enough light workers step into anchoring it just in their personal life. And so I hope this talk, was helpful. I hope it helps bring awareness of like the struggles we might go through, and just recognizing, like, if I really feel like I need someone else, if I really feel like my life isn't gonna get better before a person comes into my life, that person is on their way to you. Like for me, like finding Stephen Terrell, the therapist, like someone I really needed, and I didn't even know I needed that at the time, or having that friend my freshman year, like they will come, they're on their way, and the desire to have them means that they are coming towards you. But the question is, can I get to enough level of healing, self-awareness, wholeness, empowerment from my toxic patterns to actually be able to receive those people, because those people won't come until you're necessarily ready to handle them. And it doesn't mean we don't put ourselves out there, and it doesn't mean we don't explore different healing modalities, but the universe is always giving you what you need, not what you want. And so I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening, and bye.